What if the moment you stopped chasing someone wasn't the moment you lost them, but the moment you finally found yourself? Most people believe love is earned by doing more, texting more, proving more, sacrificing more. But the truth is, the harder you chase, the less space you leave for respect to grow. And here's what almost no one tells you. When you stop chasing a woman, something changes, not just in her mind, but in yours. Today, we're going to uncover 6 powerful shifts that can transform the way you think about attraction, confidence, and genuine connection. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is believing that constant effort is the same thing as genuine value. We grow up hearing that if you want something badly enough, you should chase it relentlessly. That advice might work in business, sports, or personal goals. But human relationships operate by a different set of principles. The more you try to force someone's attention, the more you risk communicating that your happiness depends on their response rather than your own sense of purpose. When you stop chasing, something changes immediately. Not because you've mastered a psychological trick, but because you've changed your own behavior. The endless stream of messages slows down. The constant need for reassurance disappears. You stop measuring your worth by how quickly someone replies or how often they reach out. Instead of making another person the center of your emotional world, you begin reclaiming your own life. That shift is often noticeable because your actions become more consistent with confidence and self-respect. Think about people you naturally admire. They usually aren't trying to convince everyone to like them. They know who they are, what they value, and where they're headed. They invest in meaningful work, healthy friendships, hobbies, and personal growth. Their confidence comes from having a life that matters to them, not from constantly seeking approval. That's the kind of presence that leaves an impression. Not because it's mysterious, but because it's grounded. Many people confuse chasing with caring. Caring is healthy. It means listening, showing kindness, keeping your word, and investing in a relationship that is mutual. Chasing is different. Chasing often comes from fear. The fear of losing someone, the fear of being alone, or the fear of not feeling enough. Fear changes the way we communicate. We overthink every conversation, read too much into silence, and begin acting from anxiety rather than authenticity. Over time, this can make interactions feel pressured instead of natural. When you stop chasing, you also stop trying to control outcomes that are never fully within your control. You can't force another person to feel a certain way, to respond on your timeline, or to choose the relationship you want. What you can control is your character, your actions, and the standards you set for your own life. That realization is freeing because it shifts your energy away from uncertainty and toward personal growth. It's also important to recognize that people notice changes in familiar patterns. If someone has become accustomed to constant attention and suddenly sees you investing more time in your own goals, your work, your health, or your passions, they may naturally recognize that something is different. That doesn't guarantee a particular reaction, nor should it be the goal. The real purpose isn't to make someone wonder about you. The purpose is to stop abandoning yourself in the pursuit of someone else's approval. Imagine waking up every morning focused on becoming stronger, wiser, healthier, and more disciplined. You read books that challenge your thinking. You exercise because you respect your body. You build skills that improve your future. You spend time with people who encourage your growth. Slowly, your confidence stops, depending on whether one person notices you. It begins to come from the quiet knowledge that you're keeping promises to yourself. This kind of confidence cannot be faked. It shows up in the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, and the way you respond to challenges. You become calmer because you no longer feel the need to force every outcome. You become more patient because your identity isn't tied to immediate validation. And you become more attractive, not because you're trying to appear unavailable, but because you're genuinely engaged in living a meaningful life. The irony is that the moment you stop chasing isn't about giving up on love or connection. It's about giving up the belief that your worth depends on convincing someone else to see your value. Healthy relationships are built when two people choose each other freely, not because one person refused to stop pursuing the other. Real confidence begins when you realize that your greatest responsibility is not to chase someone's attention, but to build a life that reflects your values, your purpose, and your self-respect. When you do that, whether a relationship grows or not, you've already gained something far more valuable, a stronger version of yourself, one of the most attractive qualities a person can possess is genuine self-respect. It doesn't come from expensive clothes, impressive achievements, or the ability to say all the right things. It comes from the quiet confidence of knowing who you are, understanding your values, and refusing to compromise your dignity simply to gain someone else's approval. The moment you begin valuing yourself, the way you interact with others changes. You stop trying to earn affection at any cost and start building relationships based on mutual respect. Too often, people believe that love requires endless sacrifice. They think that if they just give a little more, wait a little longer, or try a little harder, they will eventually become enough for someone else. But when your actions are driven by fear of rejection, rather than genuine care, you slowly begin to lose yourself. You stop making decisions that align with your values and instead make choices designed to avoid losing another person's attention. That isn't confidence. It is dependence on external validation. Self-respect changes this dynamic completely. It reminds you that your worth is not determined by another person's interest, attention, or approval. It teaches you that while relationships are meaningful, they should never become the foundation of your identity. Your identity should come from your principles, your character, your purpose, and the promises you keep to yourself. When you understand this, your confidence becomes steady because it is built on something that cannot be taken away by another person's opinion. Think about the leaders who inspire trust. They don't constantly seek praise or reassurance. They make decisions based on principles rather than popularity. They remain calm under pressure because they know what they stand for. The same idea applies to personal relationships. People naturally respect those who respect themselves. This doesn't mean becoming arrogant or emotionally distant. It means carrying yourself with quiet confidence, speaking honestly, and refusing to betray your own values just to be accepted. Healthy boundaries are one of the clearest expressions of self-respect. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are guidelines that protect what matters most. They define how you expect to be treated and how you choose to treat others. When you communicate your boundaries with kindness and consistency, you demonstrate emotional maturity. You are saying, I value this relationship, but I also value myself. That balance creates healthier interactions because both people understand that respect goes both ways. Many people fear setting boundaries because they worry others will leave. But if someone only stays because you ignore your own needs, that relationship is built on imbalance, not trust. Real connection grows when both people feel free to express themselves honestly without sacrificing their identity. Boundaries don't weaken relationships. They strengthen them by creating clarity, respect, and mutual understanding. Another powerful aspect of self-respect is learning to become comfortable with solitude. There is a difference between being alone and being lonely. When you enjoy your own company, you no longer view relationships as something that completes you. Instead, they become something that complements an already meaningful life. This mindset removes unnecessary pressure from your interactions because you are no longer seeking someone to fill an emotional void. You are inviting them to share in a life that already has purpose and direction. As you grow in self-respect, you also become less reactive. Delayed replies no longer ruin your day. Disagreements no longer threaten your sense of worth. You stop interpreting every situation as a reflection of your value because you understand that everyone has their own experiences, emotions, and challenges. This emotional stability allows you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. It creates a sense of calm that people often find reassuring and attractive. There is also freedom in accepting that not everyone will choose you, and that is perfectly okay. You don't need universal approval to live a meaningful life. Every healthy relationship is based on mutual choice. If someone genuinely appreciates your character, values, and personality, they will naturally want to invest in the connection. If they don't, your self-respect allows you to move forward without bitterness because you know your value isn't dependent on one person's decision. The greatest transformation happens when you stop asking, how can I make someone value me? And begin asking, am I living in a way that reflects my own values? That question changes everything. It shifts your attention from controlling someone else's feelings to improving your own character. You begin focusing on integrity instead of image, growth instead of approval, and purpose instead of constant validation. In the end, Self-respect is not about making yourself appear more attractive to someone else. It is about becoming the kind of person who lives with confidence, honesty, and emotional strength regardless of who is watching. Ironically, when you stop chasing approval and start honoring your own principles, you create the conditions for healthier, more authentic relationships. Whether someone chooses to walk beside you or not, you remain grounded because your greatest source of confidence comes from within, not from the opinions of others. One of the greatest misconceptions about attraction is that it is created by constant attention. Many people believe that the more available they are, the more messages they send, and the more they rearrange their lives for someone else, the stronger the connection will become. But meaningful relationships are rarely built through endless pursuit. They grow through authenticity, shared experiences, mutual effort, and genuine curiosity about one another. Curiosity may open the door, but trust is what keeps that door open over time. Human beings are naturally curious about people who have full, meaningful lives. When someone is deeply committed to their purpose, continually learning, building healthy relationships, and pursuing goals that matter, they become interesting not because they are trying to impress others, but because they are actively growing. Their conversations are richer. Their perspective is broader. Their confidence feels natural rather than forced. That kind of presence cannot be manufactured through clever strategies or calculated behavior. It is the result of living intentionally. Many people make the mistake of believing they must become mysterious to gain attention. They intentionally delay responses, play emotional games, or pretend not to care. While those tactics might create temporary uncertainty, they rarely build lasting trust. Relationships based on manipulation eventually become exhausting because both people begin questioning each other's sincerity. Authenticity, on the other hand, creates security. When people know that your words and actions consistently align, trust naturally grows. The goal, then, is not to appear unavailable. The goal is to genuinely have a life that doesn't revolve around another person's attention. There is an enormous difference between pretending to be busy and actually building a meaningful life. When your schedule is filled with work that excites you, friendships that support you, hobbies that challenge you, and goals that inspire you, your availability naturally becomes balanced. You're not withdrawing to create curiosity. You're simply living a life that reflects your priorities. This balance also changes the energy you bring into conversations. Instead of constantly wondering how to keep someone's interest, you become genuinely interested in learning about them. Instead of seeking validation, you seek understanding. You ask thoughtful questions. You listen without trying to control the outcome. You share your experiences honestly, rather than saying what you think the other person wants to hear. That authenticity creates deeper conversations because both people feel safe enough to be themselves. Trust grows through consistency, not perfection. No one expects flawless communication or endless agreement. What people value is reliability. They appreciate someone who follows through on promises, communicates honestly, admits mistakes, and treats others with respect even during disagreements. These qualities create emotional safety, which is one of the strongest foundations for any healthy relationship. Another important truth is that curiosity should inspire growth within yourself, not performance for someone else. Instead of asking, how can I make someone more interested in me? Ask, how can I become a more interesting person? Those are two completely different questions. The first focuses on controlling someone else's perception. The second focuses on your own development. Read books that challenge your thinking. Learn new skills. Travel when you can. Volunteer. Improve your health. Build meaningful friendships. Develop your talents. Every experience expands your perspective and gives you something genuine to contribute to conversations and relationships. People are often drawn to those who possess quiet confidence because it signals emotional stability. Quiet confidence doesn't need constant recognition. It doesn't compete for attention or demand reassurance. It is comfortable allowing conversations to breathe. It understands that silence isn't always rejection and that every relationship develops at its own pace. This calmness creates space for genuine connection because neither person feels pressured to perform. It's equally important to remember that every individual is different. There is no universal formula for what another person thinks or feels. Some people appreciate frequent communication, while others value independence. Some connect through long conversations, while others express care through actions. Healthy relationships are built by understanding each other's preferences rather than assuming one approach works for everyone. Authenticity means showing up as your true self while remaining respectful and open to learning about the other person's needs. When your focus shifts from gaining attention to building character, everything begins to change. You stop measuring success by whether someone responds immediately or expresses constant admiration. Instead, you evaluate yourself by the quality of your actions, the integrity of your decisions, and the consistency of your values. That mindset creates confidence because it places your sense of worth on something you can control, your own behavior. In the end, curiosity may spark the beginning of a conversation, but authenticity is what builds meaningful relationships. A life filled with purpose, honesty, growth, and emotional maturity is far more compelling than any strategy designed to capture someone's attention. When you stop trying to become irresistible and instead focus on becoming genuine, you create the conditions for relationships based not on uncertainty or games, but on trust, respect, and mutual appreciation. Those are the connections that endure, because they are built on who you truly are, not on who you pretend to be. One of the most powerful shifts a person can make is moving from a life driven by validation to a life driven by purpose. Many people spend years unknowingly allowing someone else's opinion to determine their emotional state. A text message can make their day. A delayed reply can ruin it. A compliment gives them confidence, while silence fills them with doubt. When your emotions are controlled by another person's reactions, you are handing over the steering wheel of your life. The problem isn't that relationships matter. They absolutely do. The problem begins when another person's approval becomes more important than your own sense of direction. Purpose changes everything because it gives you something greater than temporary emotions to focus on. A person with purpose wakes up each morning with goals that exist regardless of who texts them, who notices them, or who validates them. They have work to accomplish, skills to develop, people to serve, dreams to pursue, and challenges to overcome. Their identity is rooted in what they are building, not in how they are being perceived. Imagine two people beginning the same relationship. One person makes the relationship the center of their world. They slowly stop investing in their hobbies, neglect their friendships, postpone personal goals, and become emotionally dependent on constant reassurance. The other person values the relationship deeply, but continues growing as an individual. They pursue meaningful work, maintain healthy friendships, exercise, learn new skills, and remain committed to becoming a better version of themselves. Which person is more likely to remain emotionally strong, resilient, and fulfilled over time? The answer is usually the one whose life has purpose beyond the relationship. Purpose does not compete with love. In fact, it strengthens it. Healthy relationships are built between two complete individuals who choose to walk together, not between two people expecting each other to provide everything they need emotionally. When both people continue growing, they bring new experiences, fresh perspectives, and renewed energy into the relationship. Instead of becoming emotionally dependent, they become emotionally supportive. One of the greatest dangers of seeking validation is that it changes your decisions. You begin saying what you think others want to hear instead of expressing what you truly believe. You avoid difficult conversations because you fear rejection. You tolerate behavior that violates your values because you don't want to lose someone's attention. Slowly, piece by piece, you trade authenticity for approval. At first, it feels like compromise. Eventually, it becomes a habit. And before you realize it, you've become someone you hardly recognize. Purpose protects you from this trap because it reminds you of what truly matters. When you know your values, your mission, and your priorities, your decisions become clearer. You stop asking, will this make someone like me? And start asking, does this align with the person I want to become? That single question has the power to transform every area of your life. People often admire those who have direction, not because they are perfect, but because they are intentional. Someone who is passionate about their career, dedicated to serving others, committed to personal growth, or pursuing a meaningful dream carries a different kind of energy. They are not waiting for life to happen to them. They are actively creating it. That sense of direction inspires confidence because it reflects discipline, commitment, and resilience. Purpose also teaches patience. When your life revolves around one person's attention, every small interaction feels urgent. Every unanswered message seems significant. Every misunderstanding feels like a crisis. But when your days are filled with meaningful work and long-term goals, you begin viewing life from a broader perspective. You realize that one conversation does not define your future. One rejection does not determine your worth. One disappointment does not erase your potential. Purpose stretches your vision beyond today's emotions and reminds you of tomorrow's possibilities. There will always be moments when relationships are uncertain. People change. Circumstances change. Expectations evolve. These realities are part of life. But if your entire identity rests on another person's choices, every change feels like the end of the world. Purpose provides stability during uncertainty because it gives you something that remains constant. Your commitment to growth, integrity, kindness, excellence, and meaningful contribution does not disappear simply because a relationship changes. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally distant or pretending you don't care. Quite the opposite. It means caring deeply while refusing to lose yourself. It means loving someone without abandoning your ambitions. It means supporting another person without neglecting your own development. The healthiest relationships are built by individuals who understand that personal growth and meaningful connection can exist side by side. Ultimately, the goal is not to stop caring about people. It is to stop depending on their approval as the source of your confidence. Real confidence grows when you know that your value comes from living according to your principles, pursuing your purpose, and becoming the person you were meant to be. When you wake up every day focused on building a meaningful life, your relationships become healthier because they are no longer driven by fear or desperation. They are driven by choice, respect, and authenticity. And that is the quiet strength of a life guided by purpose rather than validation. One of the greatest misunderstandings about relationships is the belief that if you simply try hard enough, love will eventually follow. Many people are taught that persistence is the answer to everything. Work harder, give more, sacrifice more, never give up. While that mindset can be incredibly valuable when pursuing a dream, building a career, or developing a skill, relationships operate differently. A healthy relationship cannot be built by one person carrying all the emotional weight. It grows when two people willingly choose to invest in each other. There is a profound difference between pursuing a relationship with genuine interest and chasing someone who continually shows little or no desire to meet you halfway. Genuine interest is healthy. It involves honesty, kindness, communication, and making an effort to know another person. Chasing, however, often begins when one person feels responsible for creating a connection that should naturally involve both people. They become the only one initiating conversations, making plans, solving every conflict, and constantly seeking reassurance that the relationship still matters. The truth is that meaningful relationships are based on mutual choice. Every healthy connection is built on two people deciding, again and again, that they want to be present in each other's lives. That decision cannot be forced. It cannot be negotiated through endless persuasion or earned through constant self-sacrifice. Real commitment grows because both individuals recognize value in the relationship and willingly contribute to it. Think about any strong partnership, whether it is a friendship, a marriage, or a successful team. The healthiest relationships are never one-sided for long. There is balance. Sometimes one person gives a little more because the other is going through a difficult season. But over time, both continue investing in trust, communication, and support. If only one person is always carrying the relationship while the other remains emotionally distant, resentment eventually replaces connection. One of the signs of emotional maturity is understanding that you cannot control another person's decisions. You cannot make someone love you. You cannot convince someone to value you if they have already decided not to invest in the relationship. What you can do is show up with honesty, respect, and integrity. You can communicate clearly, listen carefully, and treat others with kindness. Beyond that, you must allow people the freedom to choose. While that reality can be painful, it is also liberating because it frees you from carrying responsibilities that were never yours. Many people fear this idea because they associate letting go with failure. They believe that walking away from a one-sided relationship means they didn't try hard enough. But there is wisdom in recognizing the difference between perseverance and self-neglect. Perseverance means working through challenges together. Self-neglect means abandoning your own dignity while trying to rescue a relationship that only one person is willing to build. Mutual choice also creates emotional safety. When both people willingly participate, neither has to constantly wonder where they stand. Communication becomes more open because both feel secure enough to express themselves honestly. Disagreements become opportunities for growth rather than battles for control. Trust develops because actions consistently support words. This kind of relationship doesn't require endless guessing games or emotional manipulation. It is built on transparency, respect, and shared commitment. Another important lesson is that healthy relationships require freedom. Genuine love cannot exist where there is pressure or obligation. If someone chooses to spend time with you because they genuinely appreciate your character, your values, and your presence, that connection becomes meaningful because it is freely given. But if someone feels trapped by guilt, constant persuasion, or emotional pressure, the relationship loses its authenticity. Freedom allows both people to choose each other without coercion, and that choice gives the relationship strength. This perspective also changes how you view rejection. Instead of seeing it as proof that you are not enough, you begin to understand that not every connection is meant to become a lasting relationship. Two good people can simply want different things, have different values, or be at different stages of life. Accepting this truth helps you move forward with grace rather than bitterness. It reminds you that your worth is not determined by whether one particular person chooses you. When you stop trying to convince someone of your value, you gain something far more important: clarity. You begin investing your energy in people who reciprocate your care, appreciate your presence, and contribute to the relationship with the same sincerity you offer. Your standards become healthier because you recognize that respect should flow in both directions. You no longer measure success by how long you can hold on to someone. Instead, you measure it by the quality of the relationships you build. Ultimately, the strongest relationships are not won through relentless pursuit. They are created through mutual respect, honest communication, shared values, and consistent effort from both individuals. Love grows where both people freely choose to invest, encourage one another, and continue growing together. When you embrace this truth, you stop chasing relationships that require you to abandon yourself and begin creating connections where both people are equally committed to the journey. That is where trust deepens, respect flourishes, and genuine partnership begins. The greatest transformation in life rarely begins when someone else changes. It begins when you change. Most people start their journey believing the goal is to make another person notice them, miss them, or finally appreciate their value. They spend countless hours wondering what they could have said differently, what they could have done better, or how they could become more attractive in someone else's eyes. But over time, those who truly grow discover something unexpected. The biggest victory is not changing another person's mind. It is changing your own. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize they can no longer build their identity around someone else's decisions. You cannot control how another person feels. You cannot force them to recognize your worth. You cannot guarantee that every relationship will last forever. The only thing completely within your control is the person you choose to become. And once you fully understand that, your life begins to change in ways you never imagined. Growth starts with taking responsibility for your own development. Instead of asking, "Why didn't they choose me?" you begin asking, "What kind of person do I want to become?" That question shifts your focus from blame to progress. Suddenly, your energy is no longer wasted trying to manage someone else's emotions. It is invested in building your own character, discipline, emotional intelligence, and resilience. This doesn't happen overnight. Real transformation is built through small, consistent choices repeated every single day. It is waking up early to work on your goals, even when no one is watching. It is exercising because you respect your health, not because you hope to impress someone. It is reading books that expand your thinking, learning new skills that strengthen your future, and developing habits that make you stronger mentally, emotionally, and physically. Every small decision becomes another brick in the foundation of the person you are becoming. One of the most powerful changes is learning to separate your value from other people's opinions. Many individuals unknowingly spend years seeking external validation. They feel successful only when someone praises them. They feel attractive only when someone compliments them. They feel worthy only when someone chooses them. But confidence built on external approval is fragile because it depends on circumstances you cannot control. The moment approval disappears, so does your confidence. True confidence grows from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you commit to a goal and follow through, you strengthen your self-trust. Every time you choose integrity over convenience, discipline over excuses, and growth over comfort, you remind yourself that your character is more important than temporary emotions. This kind of confidence cannot be taken away by rejection, criticism, or disappointment because it is rooted in your actions rather than other people's reactions. Transformation also means becoming emotionally resilient. Life will never be free from setbacks. Relationships will sometimes end. Opportunities will sometimes disappear. Plans will sometimes fail. Emotional resilience does not mean pretending these experiences don't hurt. It means refusing to let them define your future. You allow yourself to feel disappointment without allowing disappointment to become your identity. You acknowledge pain while continuing to move forward with courage and purpose. Another remarkable part of personal growth is discovering peace in uncertainty. When your happiness depends entirely on another person's choices, uncertainty becomes unbearable. Every unanswered message creates anxiety. Every misunderstanding feels like a threat. But when your identity is grounded in your own values and purpose, uncertainty loses much of its power. You realize that regardless of what happens externally, you still have the ability to live with integrity, kindness, and determination. As you continue growing, your relationships naturally become healthier. You stop trying to earn love through constant sacrifice. Instead, you bring your best self into every connection. You communicate honestly because you are no longer afraid of rejection. You establish healthy boundaries because you understand your own worth. You appreciate others without depending on them to complete you. This creates relationships built on freedom rather than fear, respect rather than insecurity, and partnership rather than emotional dependence. Perhaps the most beautiful part of transformation is that it inspires others without requiring you to convince anyone. People notice consistency. They notice discipline. They notice calm confidence. They notice someone who remains kind under pressure, focused during adversity, and humble during success. These qualities cannot be faked because they are developed through experience and intentional growth. Your example begins speaking louder than your words ever could. In the end, the real goal was never to make someone regret losing you or to make someone suddenly recognize your value. Those outcomes are beyond your control and should never become the purpose of your growth. The true goal is far greater. It is becoming a person whose confidence comes from character, whose strength comes from resilience, and whose happiness comes from living according to deeply held values. When you become that person, you gain something far more valuable than anyone else's approval. You gain yourself. And once you have built a life rooted in purpose, integrity, and self-respect, no relationship can define your worth, because your greatest transformation has already taken place within you.